Guten Abend, meine Damen und Herren.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. Welcome to the first open forum here in Davos. The task which we've been asked to deal with is quite clear. Together with our guests, which I will be introducing you to in a moment, we would like to discuss what you actually need in order to make sure that the poorest people in the developing countries can participate in economic development. An important step will be achieved once the poor people can not only produce but consume, and when they're integrated into the rest of the economy, and so that they can improve their living standard in the process. In theory, ladies and gentlemen, it sounds very good and it sounds very simple, but we all know that it's a very stony path to get there. We've got excellent representatives, social entrepreneurs, who have all developed a particular model, who've all got experience with a particular practice, people who have succeeded in developing entrepreneurial initiatives together with other circles of enthusiasts and to develop those activities. Let me introduce our guests. Gisele Yitamben. Mrs. Yitamben is the founder of an association for the support of women entrepreneurs. It is an organization which supports thousands of women in Africa, and in particular in Cameroon, Ghana, Benin, Chad, women who are all or want to become independent entrepreneurs. Mrs. Yitamben's organization provides certain business knowledge and helps develop individual models. But she also supports export activities. And with her internet activities and in the e-commerce sector, she is very active. Fazle H. Abed has traveled extensively and comes to us from Bangladesh. Mr. Abed is the founder and chief executive of BRAC in Bangladesh, but his organization is represented throughout Asia. He is the man of the NGOs. He is the man who really has made the NGOs known in Asia. Currently, Mr. Abed is active primarily in Afghanistan, which is a place he went to immediately after the war in Afghanistan. He went together with his organization and he's helping in reconstruction efforts. And he has a doctorate from Queen's Canada in Canada. Mrs. Navata should have been participating, but she can't come, and Mr. Abed is replacing her. Javier Mercado from Bolivia. Mr. Mercado has developed a number of different organizations in Bolivia, which helps more than 1,700 farming families. And the idea is to help these people better market their products, particularly coffee. He has his own factories, his own shops, and shops which have up to 4,000 customers a day. Mr. Hurtado studied sociology in Germany and has a doctorate. Aubry from San Francisco. Dick Aubry founded Rubicon organization and has done much to improve the living and working conditions in districts which are inhabited by Afro-Americans for generations, and he wants to help them participate in economic progress. Rubicon has been active for 15 years and is involved in a number of different activities, bakeries and other activities of this type. The person who's come closest to Davos, Mr. Ogi, our former Swiss president. We're very happy that he is able to come and join us this evening. As you probably know, Mr. Ogi is a special advisor to Kofi Annan and he is advisor on sports for peace and development. He is often traveling, and it's an opportunity which he has been able to take advantage of, and his period of office has been extended by 2 years, so we congratulate you, Mr. Ogi, on getting your period of office extended. Mr. Ogi is here as a member of the Schwab Foundation for Social Entrepreneurship. And that is the first question I'd like to address to you, Mr. Ogi. What is this foundation actually doing? First of all, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Well, we're in Switzerland, a country with 4 languages, 26 cantons, and since 1884 we've been able to cohabit in peace and security only quite simply because we've looked after our minorities. And today, the people who want to speak English are in the minority. But nevertheless, I will try and make an effort to speak English. It's Swiss-German English, so I hope you will bear with me. But I hope that something doesn't get completely too distorted. But I think it is very important that we at the Schwab Foundation for Social Entrepreneurship are able to participate in this little session this evening, and that we can set out the goals that we have fixed for ourselves. That we can tell entrepreneurs, that we can tell business what the Schwab Foundation is actually doing. Ladies and gentlemen, before I go into some of the details of our work, perhaps let me just say what I think about developments in the world. In my function as Kofi Annan's advisor for sport and its contribution to peace and development, and I will continue to act in that capacity. And I will just be continuing my activities in Africa. I've just come back from Uganda, incidentally. I think that we are in a trust crisis, ladies and gentlemen. And you need to have pilots in moments of crisis, people who can steer the boat out of this crisis. The dissatisfaction that people feel is very great indeed. Anxiety is widespread, and the values that were held high a few years ago seem to have simply been jettisoned. And this has something to do with things that are going on at the top echelons of management.
Must be in this world to improve people's life. The Schwab Foundation fosters greater understanding of and support for the practice of social entrepreneurship through the creation of a network for social entrepreneurship. The Schwab Foundation for Social Entrepreneurship is a non-profit organization. And what we are explaining today, for us here in Switzerland, it is a dream, but this dream must come through. And those who are with me here on the panel, they have already experience, and they have already done a great job throughout the world. And I'm glad that you're listening to them, what they have achieved. That is the beginning. If you want me to get in details, I am at your disposal. But what I would like to say, what is social entrepreneurship not? Because there is always a big mixture between social entrepreneur and other ideas. Social entrepreneurship is not synonymous with corporate responsibility. It's not a different form of charity. It's not a different form of charity. Nor a social entrepreneur simply charities becoming business. No. Social entrepreneur try. Ich sage es auf Deutsch. Versuch.
Do it in German. What social entrepreneurs try to do is to tap into their social heart, into their social artery, and to pass on that social feeling to others. And that is the purpose of this evening, to explain to you, to tell you how this works.
Herr Ogi,
Thank you, Mr. Ogi.
what's really a social entrepreneur? Is it the definition we heard from Mr. Ogi, or can you be a little bit more specific?
Sure. I'd be happy to be specific. If I could just thank you again for honoring me, for inviting me here today. And I must say, it's quite a special honor for me to be on this platform with many of my personal heroes. I think as this presentation goes on and you hear the work that my colleagues are doing in developing nations, you'll find their work is both remarkable and inspirational. To the concept of what is a social entrepreneur, a colleague of ours has said that, in effect, a social entrepreneur is a mutant manager, that we take the best of what has been developed in the business community in terms of how best to organize and manage organizations using entrepreneurial skills, but then really using them for a social purpose rather than for just a return on an investment. And then the social goals, rather than the economic goals, is what drives the social entrepreneur. So while there is measurement, while there are outcomes, while there is a clear methodology for doing the work, nevertheless, the bottom line, if you will, is not a financial return, but a social benefit to the cause that we're trying to solve.
So that means in your organization you don't make profits?
Well, we try to make profits, but the purpose of those profits are not to return to investors a return for the capital that they've placed with us, but it's rather to create jobs for the people that we're in the business of serving, to build affordable housing, to increase the community of people that we serve, and in effect there's a continual reinvestment of what the profits would be for a different purpose than is normally thought about in a profit situation.
The best would be explain us your business model, what you are doing in San Francisco, and yeah.
Great. So the United States still has tremendous issues of poverty. American poverty is very different from developing world poverty. We're not faced with the issues of how do we get clean water to people, or sort of fundamental public health issues, but we have very strong what are called pockets of poverty. Very often these are in African American communities, as you mentioned, where there's multi-generational issues of poverty, where there has not been a workforce that has been developed, where there is, next to all of the wealth of the San Francisco area and Palo Alto, there are tremendous communities that have been totally unaffected by either the boom of the 1990s or even now the recession that we're in. They just remain immune and apart from the American economy. So our business model is to work with communities and realize that the aspirations of the people that we serve are much more similar to middle-class aspirations than different. People want a decent job, they want a decent place to live, and they want to be part of a community. And our agency is set up to serve all three of those goals. And we do that by building affordable housing at a fairly significant level, by providing a wide range of services that builds community, and particularly by running social purpose businesses. These are businesses that must compete in the marketplace, that provide services and products that have customers, that have competitors, that need capital, that have to be managed well. The difference between our business model and the traditional entrepreneurial business model is twofold. First, the workforce in our businesses is overwhelmingly people who come in our doors as homeless, people who come in our doors with little or no work experience, despite the fact that they're adults, people with very profound disabilities, those people who have been disenfranchised from the community. And we take on that competitive disadvantage of having a workforce that has been set aside to meet the social goal of creating community, creating employment, creating independence for these folks, and doing that within a business that can in fact succeed by having a product that people want to buy.
And what you are doing physically?
So the three businesses we currently operate, apart from the services and the housing that we build, is a dessert bakery, Rubicon Bakery, which makes cakes and tarts. in one of the poorest communities of San Francisco that are sold through 6 states of the United States, primarily in the wealthiest communities. There is a tremendous desire for these products, and there is a significant amount of capital that flows back into a poor community as a result of establishing a business that creates a highly desired product that has brand recognition, that is well managed, that sells into the normal market chains of high-end supermarkets. That's our first business. Our second business is a landscape business that has contracts throughout Northern California that, again, with our workforce, trains and employs people to be horticulturists, landscape specialists. And our third business is in the health area. It's a home care agency. And we train and employ primarily women to provide assistance to people who want to be able to stay living in their home, but who are so disabled that without having some support would have to be in an institution. And by coupling that need that exists within the market for having that service with the abilities of the workforce that we serve, we create a career for people to move out of poverty into the healthcare industry and then move along into a more stable economic situation.
Do you have already seen some followers working also in your business model? Is your model spreading around? Or?
There is a tremendous growth in our model. We don't claim to be the originator of this model. Innovation, in that sense, there is too many authors to this for us to claim any authorship of it. We were an earlier adopter of it, certainly not the first. We've been at it and have achieved a scale somewhat larger than many. But in the last 10 years in the United States, this whole concept of social entrepreneurship has really become a very significant force. 6 years ago, 6 of us met in Chicago to describe getting together a national organization to meet of social entrepreneurs. Each year for the last 4 years, we've had such a meeting. A month ago, when we had our meeting, there was 450 people who came. So from 6 to 450 people in organizations throughout the United States trying to do this social entrepreneurship.
Thank you. Let's change from San Francisco to Bangladesh, to Mr. Abed. What's your contribution of your organization to improve the economic condition in Bangladesh? What's your real point?
Well, we work with large numbers of very poor people. Bangladesh has got 130 million people. Half of them are living below poverty line. So we try and work with the poorest half of the population, particularly women. We have 4.2 million women organized into cooperative groups in their villages. And what we do is we consider that development is a human process in which people participate in their own development. It's a process which you cannot impose by outsiders. So we want to first get them organized to try and act on their own behalf for their own development. So we provide an enabling environment in which people can participate in their own development. So this is our task. So the way we do it, we organize people in their villages, and then we provide various supports to them. One support is microfinance. We have, as I said, 4.2 million borrowers who save and who also receives financial support from us in terms of loans, which they repay every 12 months, and then they can get another loan, a bigger loan, and so on. So they can participate in various kinds of activities in agriculture, horticulture, fisheries, livestock, small trading, all kinds of activities that they can do themselves. Then on top of that, what we have is the support that we provide in creating jobs for poor people in the villages. We, I think in 1991 to 95, we planted 26 million mulberry trees in order to provide women the opportunity to get into silk worm rearing and silk cultivation. So we gave 200 trees to each woman who got into a job. So we have created about 100,000 jobs in silk. But then if you're producing so much silk, how do you market these things? So we set up craft shops all over Bangladesh. And then we are exporting silk to various countries, Italy, France, and other countries, whoever buys our silk. So we consider that not only people should act on their own behalf, but there are infrastructure needed for them to support themselves. So these infrastructure needs to be created either by government or by NGOs such as ourselves, who would provide the opportunities for people to access to income earning possibilities. We also provide various other kinds of support, input supply. If you're rearing poultry, we have got 1.3 million women who are in poultry business. So we supply them day-old chicks of the hybrid varieties, which produces the largest number of eggs per year. So we provide them day-old chicks. So we produce 2 million day-old chicks per month to supply to our women who needs poultry, who are poultry rearing. We also market their products. We have a factory which sort of, do the slaughtering and marketing in Bangladesh. So we do that. We have lots of women. We have 1.3 million women who rear cows, and they need to sell their milk. So in the villages, the market for milk isn't there because the price is too low. And so we collect their milk and pasteurize them, make them into butter and yogurt and whatever it is, pasteurized milk, and sell them in the city markets. We export vegetables that they produce. We produce vegetable seeds so that they can get a higher productivity out of their vegetable gardening. So all kinds of ways we provide input supply, logistical support, marketing support, so that poor women can get into various kinds of businesses which would give them an economic independence. But we are not content just with providing microfinance to economically active population. We also think that there are about 5% of Bangladesh's population which are so poor that they can't even get into economic activities on their own behalf to create jobs for themselves. They need to find jobs somewhere else. So we are now trying to get entrepreneurs whom we provide financial services support so that they could get into economic activities which would create jobs for the very poorest of the poor people who cannot create jobs for themselves. That also we do. So we do microfinance for entrepreneurs. Now we have set up a bank which is going to do small and medium enterprise and also corporate loans. So basically we straddle the whole from the very poorest of the poor to the rich in financial services, which creates an economic environment in which poor people can sustain themselves and develop themselves. We also believe that economic development is not the only thing that one could do. One could do social development, healthcare, education. We consider that education is one of the investments that we do today which will help our country to get out of poverty in course of time.
Mr. Abed.
So, can I just,
Sure.
1 minute or half a minute? So we have set up one teacher schools, 34,000 of them, and we have got 1.1 million children in our schools to provide 6 years of primary education. And we have got this model being replicated all over Bangladesh and also in India, in Africa, in Latin America, and China and Vietnam. So these models are working, and we think that development has to be, people are not just economic individuals, they are also social beings, they need to be empowered. So all these things come together, and we think that development is a holistic approach that we take in development. I think it must somehow or other serve our people to empower themselves. Thank you.
I have just a question. How is BRAC financed?
Financed? Well,
Where the money is coming from?
Our budget today is $136 million this year. And we are getting from donors approximately 40 million. So it's about 30% of our money comes from donors, and the rest of it is created by poor people doing things on their own. For example, this year we have financed $340 million in loans. So the income from that has come as an income to BRAC, the service charge on that. So we as I said, that we earned something like $90 million this year.
And the interest rate is subsidized, or?
No, interest rate is market rate.
Market rate?
And because we have a large numbers of people who are borrowers, and the methodology used is also less costly, we can cover our costs within reasonable limits, and we can make profit out of it.
And Mr. Abed, how you are started in Afghanistan?
Yes, I thought when I started 31 years ago, Bangladesh became independent, and it had gone through a problem of a civil war before it got its independence. So we have worked initially with the relief and rehabilitation in Bangladesh, and then got into development, long-term development. And when Afghanistan became, it was possible for us to go to Afghanistan, we felt that it's a similar kind of situation, but probably a little worse than Bangladesh was in 1971. So we felt that we could share our experience with our Afghan people. And so we started in Afghanistan. We have got about 140 Afghan staff and 12 Bangladeshis who are trying to help them to set up schools. So we have got 40 schools for girls going now. We have got 5,000 borrowers in our microfinance program, and we have got about 200 villages working with primary healthcare in 200 villages. So we will be expanding in Afghanistan from now on. So we started about 6 months ago, and I think it's early days yet. So we will probably do similar kind of things that we have done in Bangladesh.
Madam Yitamben, I think you have a similar model, like the model of Mr. Abed. You have also an organization organizing a lot of women, thousands of women. Tell us something about it.
Yes, you are right. Association for Support to Women Entrepreneurs, based in Cameroon, in the Central Africa, is an organization that have developed programs to support women entrepreneurs. I'm coming from an area where women are known to be very, very active. They produce 80% of the food in the country. They control the food sector. They are the growers, the harvesters, and the sellers. But their business have kept a very small dimension because they lack access to credit, they lack access to productive means, they lack access to technical support and information and training, because many of them, the kind of business they are into are so small that the traditional institutions are not ready to lend them some money. And many of them are not literate, so the traditional institutions are not ready to train them. So looking into this, we decided to create our organization, looking into this injustice, because women in this part of the world work over 14 hours per day. And we decided to set up this organization to be able to develop a kind of products that will help them support the enterprise, help them being more productive and more competitive. That's why we did set up a financial system which has been based on our way of doing things. When I heard Abed saying that they are sustainable because the follow-up, the mechanism put in place is based on the social environment. So many people are involved in the way the credit is being given out. Is not one institution and the others in the front, is the whole community taking care, making sure that the money which has been given out is repaid back. And I remember when in 1995, the High Commissioner of Canada visited our microfinancing program. He did this comment. He said, "We are using big guns to kill flies," because they themselves had developed in my country a microfinancing program, and they were using 100 times the budget that we were using, while were having better results regarding what they were having. And I remember he went back to our government to ask our government to give us all the program that they were doing as a Canadian, all the micro-lending program. But unfortunately, the government did not listen to us, and 6 years later, we can come back and see what the project has become. And after this micro-lending, many of the women we have been supporting, because this program has been going on for 13 years, not 30 as you said, as yours, 1313. And many of these women has gone from self-employed, small micro business to small business. And looking at these businesses and looking at the opportunities that information technology was bringing, in 1999, we decided with the women to see how we could really integrate in our program information technology. And we did integrate information technology to improve the competitiveness and the productivity of the women who were ready for export. And I remember at that time when we decided to talk about exports, many people were not very, let's say, very enthusiastic, saying the quality of the products are not yet at the good level. But what we did, we called an international meeting where we brought in women, African women from the diaspora, knowing that these were natural buyers of the product of these women. So we all meet in Africa and set up a strategy, because when we travel in each capital in the world, we will find products for Africa, but products from these women, but it's not coming directly from the women. It has been going from middleman to middleman, and they don't get the profit they are intended to get to. So we were able to set a kind of network where our products, the products of women, can pass through and can be sold in international market. And with this, the infrastructure, the technology, the telecom infrastructure that we set up, we really thought that this was an opportunity to get women out of the small kind of business they have been using to do. So looking of the number of employment, the number of jobs that is going to be created all over, even in Africa, because of computerization, we set up programs to train women in networking, cabling, word processing, webmastering. And also with this infrastructure, we have been able to develop some business, like translation business, Cameroon being a bilingual country with some good school and many young people coming out of university without a lot of place to go, without a lot of jobs. So we have been able to organize these young people to be able to respond to some market in the country and internationally.
Mm-hmm. But how your network is run, by yourself or by a whole organization, bottom up or top down, or?
Yes, that is a good question. Let's say I'm the initiator of this project, and we have got a lot of other people, a lot of other programs in Africa to get involved in this project. I will not say I think is a kind of organization where many people are involved. You have many programs going on, and this is controlled where like for microfinance, is being controlled by the group of people who are doing this microfinance. Like for translation, you have group of students, group of young people who have come up together to see their business and to run it, to follow it up.
Mm-hmm. Is it something like a virtual business school for thousands of people? And you are something like a real consultant?
The business...
Chief executive.
Huh?
You're the chief executive.
Yes, I'm, I'm the chief executive.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. So we change from Africa to South America to Mr. Hurtado. Mr. Hurtado is, I think, a real entrepreneur. A social entrepreneur and a real entrepreneur, as I can see, as I read, and you are running an organization making profits. How you are doing it exactly?
Vielen Dank.
Thank you. I'm going to try and speak in German. And I'm sometimes going to do like Tarzan and switch to English. I'm happy to see that a lot of local people from Davos have shown an interest and that there is this human exchange. People who come along because they're interested in finding out about what's being done in the world. And I'm going to try and explain what is happening in Irupana. I am a sociologist by training. I spent many years working in the field of international cooperation in Bolivia. But I found that for me and for my wife, these 10 years were very frustrating. International cooperation in Bolivia has really created dependency. And that's why 17 years ago we decided to try and set up a normal private company. And Irupana is a company which produces organic products. And we buy raw products from the small Indian communities. And we have learnt much from these Indian communities. We have developed modern facilities and we come into these cities with these organic products and sell these organic products to the middle classes. We work together with more than 1,700 farming families. We have about 10 employees, so most of these are former farmers themselves. We produce more than 48 products, and we also sell products made by other companies involved in organic produce. Now, you may want to know how you can call a company such as the one I'm describing social entrepreneurs. Well, we are social entrepreneurs because we do all this business, and it is run as a normal business. But we have a different relationship between capital and labor and between capital and nature. We buy produce from the farmers. We pay 5 to 20% more than other farmers get for their produce. We try and pay the best wages to our employees as well, but that's not enough. Now, we have started to sell shares. So we started selling shares in our company. Our dream is that in the next 5 to 7 years, that 33% of a company will belong to the farmers and also to the staff. 34% will belong to the social entrepreneur. And we want to keep 33% over for investments, particularly in order to produce venture capital and joint ventures. This type of way of doing business is not just based on an ideological approach. We have discovered that working in these organic produce areas, that things really do work well. And that there is a whole mentality behind it. We can't change raw material suppliers every year, because in order to get a certificate that you're an organic grower, you've got to do this over the long term. And the farmers who sell to us must be happy with the prices we pay, and we must be happy with the quality they supply us with. In other words, the relationship between us and the farming community must be based on loyalty. And that cannot be something established just on the basis of price. Not only do we pay fair play prices, but our profit has also to be plowed back. It has to go into this industrial process. The same thing applies to our staff. In Bolivia, the situation on the labor market is very tight indeed. And the minimum wage in Bolivia is about $70 a month. We pay our staff more than $100 a month. Of course, we realize that it's not enough. And we've understood that if we really want to get high-quality organic products, if we want to get into your markets, and I'm doing a bit of marketing for ourselves, and I hope that you will be buying, or that we'll be able to see our products being sold here in Davos next year. And it is strategically important for us to be able to tap into export markets, because our national market is too poor and too small. And we must try and get into the export markets, not with raw materials, but with processed or manufactured products. That's very important for us. We're going to consolidate the project now. And we want to maintain a good relationship with all the people involved in this project, the farmers, the social entrepreneurs, etc. Irupana is therefore a social entrepreneurship.
Part because I wrote it in English, and now I have to change suddenly my program. I think it is important for Davos and for the World Economic Forum to know our experience, because we are living a world crisis which origin is mainly the injustice for the majority of the people of our planet. And I am very strongly inspired from what Mr. Klaus Schwab said today in the beginning of the session, and from what I also hear from your president. And I think that for me it's very clear that we cannot solve the problems of environment and the problems of the poor if we keep on going on the capitalist way without radical changes. We are showing you that it is possible to have democracy, it is possible to have the market freedom, but without monopoly and without the bureaucrats that in East Europe developed. And it is possible to develop the possibility of the individual development of each person, of each producer. But we have to change the relation between the owners of capital and the workers. I think we have to save the entrepreneur spirit from the fall of capitalism, which I clearly see that it is happening. And we must create a new way to organize our societies. And what we are trying to do hard is to show that it is not a theory, it is a practice. Thank you.
Maybe. Maybe we can start the second round here at this point. Mr. Ogi, what do you think? The last remark you made.
The last word, we must create a new way. I think that is the most important message which should be spread out from Davos. But I think what we heard now, and if we summarize that, entrepreneurs are looking for practical solutions, for innovative solutions. They see opportunities and they take risks. I think that is the importance. And if I may say something about Switzerland, I must say we need more social entrepreneurship thinking in Switzerland. We need more entrepreneurships in Switzerland. Meine Damen und Herren, here in Davos.
Ladies and gentlemen, here in Davos, there are certain developments which are not just being discussed, but which are actually being introduced. Decisions are prepared here in Davos. And there are other people, perhaps people in Porto Alegre at the present time, have the impression that we here at the top table have power and they have no power. And that is precisely why I think that this new way, this new path must be found.
We have to understand dass das eine große
I think that that is a great opportunity.
That this new way can be accepted. Identifying new process, new services, new products, or unique ways of combining proven practice with innovation. I must say, every entrepreneur should see that chance, should go in that direction, should accept that new way. And therefore, I'm so glad that you came tonight to listen to those who have experience. I have no experience. I'm not a social entrepreneur. I was a, someone said once, we had in the government 6 ministers and 1 ski teacher. Yes, I was one ski teacher. But then I was president, and now I am Kofi Annan's delegate on sport for development and peace. For development and peace. We can bridge through sport to peace. We can bridge to development. Because the best school of life is, and the best education for life is sport. Through sport I can learn to lose without thinking that's the end of my life. I can learn to win without thinking I'm the new God. I can learn to respect the opponent, not only accept the opponent, to respect the opponent. I can learn to accept discipline, to accept the decision of the referee. The best school of life. Es ist die beste Lebensschule. Und die beste Lebensschule ist nötig.
And you need to have the best school of life in order to be able to achieve all the things that these people have achieved.
Didn't get the translation, but it was necessary.
Tell him that you did.
German, because the majority here is Swiss German. So let's go that new way. Let's take this chance.
Let's come back to real obstacles in the way for a better development, and maybe you have some specific obstacles seen in Africa regarding the world market and so on.
Usually the image that is projected on Africa is an image of war, disease, poverty. And I'm really happy to be here today and to be part of the SEWA Foundation, who has chosen to celebrate creativity and innovation. There are many people, and I think the image which is being projected of Africa is a really obstacle of what we are doing. Today, there are few people ready to come and work with us as entrepreneurs. When you talk of Africa, they think of charity. Instead of seeing how they can work with us. And I hope, I wish that here in this community, we are going to find people to whom we can be able to sell some of our services. We can be able to outsource some of the things that you are doing. We can be able to do the data entry for some of the programs that you have here. We are already doing it. And if you really think that there should be justice in the world, you can be, kind of patient, helping, tolerating the error, helping the business person from this part of the world, being less exigent, but knowing that that's the way you are going to bring him in a certain level. So I really wish that we can be able to do business with people in this country.
Yeah, I can support it. Mr. Aubry, is there a certain American view on these problems we discussed?
The challenges that we face, absolutely. The largest challenge we have is that what we do, while very successful and really changing the lives of a small number of people, is still very much a micro strategy. Yeah? And poverty is a very large issue. And there are many institutional barriers, if you will, to our being able to bring this to a larger scale. Perhaps the most significant is just the flow of capital to support these kind of operations. It's, while not easy, it's easier to get support when you're a very small nonprofit organization, but there's much greater difficulty when you get to a certain sort of middle stage of scale to get larger. If we were a for-profit company, there would be something called mezzanine financing for something like that. There is not an analog in the nonprofit world for that kind of financing, for the capital necessary to get something from a relatively small scale, even a middle-sized scale, to a very large scale. So that's a very big problem. Coupled with that is that because we're, not just at Rubicon, but all social entrepreneurs are innovators, we're not either understood or supported by institutions such as the government. Often when we have conversations, what seems to cut across the board is that, while we were talking earlier today about mistrust of governments, governments don't know what to make of us because we're not traditional NGOs, we're not traditional small businesses, and we don't fit into those boxes, so they don't feel comfortable supporting us in the ways that are necessary to get to a larger scale. We're trying to provide what's often called a double bottom line of having a financial return and serving a social purpose. But the financial return that we provide in and of itself is always going to be smaller than if we were simply entrepreneurs because of the nature of what we do, and that scares away traditional capital funding. The social purpose that we do is not understood well enough by foundations and the government, so they have yet not figured out how to fund us. And so getting from very well-run, very well-respected, but relatively modest scale to a large is the big challenge in America for all social entrepreneurs.
Mr. Abed, where do you see barriers which have to be overtaken in the developing process internationally?
Internationally, I would say that we talk a great deal about free trade, globalized economy, globalization and so on. But there are quite a lot of things which goes on in the West, particularly in Europe and America, subsidy for agriculture, which keeps third world's agricultural products away from these countries. So it's basically a tariff barrier on products from our countries. So we talk. It's a talk and not deed so much. So that's one area, because I'm trying to export a lot of agricultural products to Europe and America, and I'm finding it difficult to compete with the subsidy that you have got. Mm-hmm. In the 80s, we had problems. There was a lot of subsidy in dairy industry in Europe, and I tried in 1981 to set up a dairy industry. Didn't succeed because the price of milk from Europe, which was dumped into Bangladesh, was so much lower that our farmers couldn't get into dairy business at all. So it's only when, after Maastricht Treaty, and there was continuous, cutting down of subsidies, that we were now able to develop a dairy industry which can earn its own keep. So that's one problem area. The other problem area is internal. Our own governments sometimes don't understand the needs of our poor people, and they need to be also persuaded, sometimes pressured to accept the needs of our people. So we work on that level also. I'm trying to now go to India and see there are 1 billion people, probably 300 million poor people, and I want to do microfinance there. We have got 4 million borrowers in Bangladesh. I think we can do 10 million borrowers in India, but Indian government will probably find it very difficult for a Bangladeshi organization to going in and getting into microfinance. So I'm now trying to check out what are the obstacles to serving poor people in India. So I'm sure that there are internal problems as well as external. So, and we live in a world where we have to surmount these problems gradually, sometimes with pressure, and sometimes by persuasion. Thank you.
Meine Damen und Herren, wir haben jetzt noch eine gute...
We've got a quarter of an hour, ladies and gentlemen. If you want to make comments, ask questions, can I invite you to ask your questions? Perhaps give us your name, tell us who you represent. Here at the front, please.
Darf Sie auch bitten, kurz aufzustehen?
And perhaps you could just stand up when you ask your question so we can see you.
My name is Linda Walker. I have a question to Mr. Ogi. Could you explain to us concretely what the Schwab Foundation actually does? Because I don't think any of us really know what the foundation concretely does.
In English or in German? I do it in German, and then I can translate if you want me. The Schwab
Foundation is a foundation for social entrepreneurship, and it's there to support the development of solutions to the problems of the 21st century, and to support the activities of entrepreneurs who have a social conscience and social responsibility. And the idea behind this is for social entrepreneurs to be able to put forward their ideas, their solutions, I was saying earlier on that these social entrepreneurs, such as the people who are sitting next to me, are looking for practical solutions. And that's why this has to be coupled with the captains of industry who are represented here in Davos. The captains of industry have to have the understanding that they must also cooperate with social entrepreneurs. Social entrepreneurs are looking for innovative solutions. They're looking for possibilities, but there has to be an echo. Their message has to be understood by the representatives of industry here in Davos. And so the Schwab Foundation is not only here to organize the forum for the captains of industry, but also to include 40 or 50 social entrepreneurs. Originally wanted to give a prize of $1 million. And then in the board of the foundation, we thought that that was probably not the best idea. We could spend the money better by inviting 50 social entrepreneurs to Davos and to participate in this get-together. And we really do hope that a lot of people in industry will get the message and will understand the message from these people.
Good, Swiss, German? Okay.
Next question.
Are you English or speaking English? Your language is English or German? Yeah. Ah, gut, da bin ich jetzt. Für eine Politik, wir sind etwas oben.
We're at the top, and we don't want to just talk above your heads. I'd like just to participate in the discussion. I agree with you, Mr. Ogi. My name is Mr. Meyer. I am a self-employed entrepreneur, and I import paper from Asia, and we sell it at a higher price. Now, I think that we also have an opportunity to ensure that people in Pakistan, India, Afghanistan, that they are not exploited. That's where the whole process must start. Perhaps, Mr. Abed, you could tell us something about your organization, because I have participated in somebody from your organization. Now, we process the paper, and the people we pass on the paper also have a margin. We pay 1%, we put aside 0.25%, and we use this money that is part of the profit in order to get children to go to school in Bangladesh. But the states and NGOs impede our work. I'm not going to mention individual names, but governments want all money to be channeled through the NGOs. And they're not really interested. They don't have an open ear for new models. It's the same situation in Germany. I work in the Federation of the Carpet Importers. We have been accused unjustly by the NGOs. We do things. There are organizations that get money from the state, but they have no projects. We support projects directly. That is the future. And I think that if we were to open up these channels, then in 5 years' time, the world will be in a much better situation, because the NGOs will only probably send 1/3 of the money they receive to the people who actually need it, and 2/3 will be consumed by the NGOs.
Whole development process, Mr. Abed.
Well,
you are an NGO.
I think Mr. Meyer's idea of working directly with the people of a country is a good idea, but sometimes you have to work through an NGO simply because they are operating in that country, and you can probably get much better value for it. If you get better value directly operating through the people's organizations, that's even better. But I would say that I think the notion that NGOs sometimes keep 2/3 of the funding they generate in these countries is probably not quite right, because I know that large numbers of NGOs in the West, in Europe, they look at their overhead levels very with a sharp eye and try to keep it as low as possible. So I know most NGOs don't operate for more than 15% of the money that they raise in these countries, and try and disburse as much as 85%, or at least the good ones that they do that. But I think if you have other ways of accessing, projects where NGOs don't take a cut out of that, it's even better. So I wouldn't argue with you about this. Thank you.
Okay. Next question.
My name is Alec Gagne. I'm living near Zurich, and I call myself development dialoguer. Half of the year I am working in Nepal and in India and also in Africa, and the situation is really very difficult for the people. We have heard the new way we want to make economy is to export from countries like Bangladesh or Bolivia food, what actually people should have to the rich countries. So if this is the right way of a so-called new way to reduce poverty, I don't believe that this is the correct way. Because, I mean, if the rich eat the food of the poor, something is wrong with the economy. Mr. Ogi, you said we need a new way. Tell us what was wrong in the last 33 years, what you discussed here in the World Economic Forum, what was wrong there? And tell us what is the new way you suggest us. Then I would like to know, Mr. Abed, you said we need a holistic approach. I agree in that, what you said. Please tell us, what are you doing against HIV/AIDS and against the population exponential growth? What are you doing in your organization? And I also would like to know, Mr. Meyer asked you, how much is the interest rate? How much is the interest rate of your loans that you give to the poor people? And where is the money, this interest money? Is it going back to the people, or is it going in the pockets of the rich? Thank you.
Thank you. A lot of questions, starting with Mr. Abed. Okay.
Okay. Well, I think the first thing you attacked is the food export from Bangladesh. Well, Bangladesh, as you know, has been a food deficit country for all these years, but now we are a food, if not surplus, but we are producing enough food for ourselves, so we don't export very much. The one thing I talked about is in agricultural export is not food necessarily, but vegetables and things like that, which Europeans consume, and we can produce it at very cheap price, at a lower cost. So we can have an export to Europe for vegetables that we can grow, which you can't grow. So there could be a market here, but because of agricultural subsidy that you have, I suppose we can't compete with you. The other thing is, holistic approach means that there are a lot of different kinds of activities. We work on health. Throughout the 80s, we worked on getting mortality of children down from 130 per thousand to now 60. So it has been reduced over the period of 20 years, the infant mortality rates, by working on oral rehydration therapy, teaching mothers how to make oral rehydration solution at home and cut down diarrheal mortality. We have worked on immunization of children. So we have worked on a number of these areas in order to get, unless you get the child mortality down to a significant level, you cannot have a family planning program going very effectively. So we worked on that, and as a result, Bangladesh's population growth rate has gone down for 6 children per family to 3.2 now. It needs to go down to 2, and it will take another 6 to 8 years for us to get that. So you don't really work on population directly. Sometimes you work on health so that population ultimately goes down. So you also build women's empowerment. When women are employed, they are empowered, they are educated, that also reduces family size. So we are working on a number of these areas in order to get population control under more or less under control, and that is happening. Now, interest rate, you asked me what interest rate we charge. We charge 15%. And BRAC is not an organization which is owned by anybody. It's a non-profit organization. Whatever it earns, it has to pay it back into itself. It is not a shareholding, it's not a company. There is no money that goes out of BRAC, so even if BRAC makes a profit, it'll remain within BRAC to be used for some social purpose. So it is not a company, it's not a business organization. It is a truly social organization that any surpluses generated is used for public purposes. Thank you.
Ich glaube, ich werde versuchen, Deutsch zu antworten.
I'll try and answer in German because we are both Swiss. It's very difficult to give you a short answer to your question, but I'll try to be brief. First of all, on the 11th of September, the world changed. And as a politician, I think it is quite right that politicians should take the final decision, not the economy. I think that's very important. The priorities have changed today. And I think that political decisions have to take precedence over economic decisions. And I think that politicians also have to explain to the population that they have a greater responsibility today. The point made by Mr. Meyer is something that I accept, but the problem today is that you see a lot of people who don't help solve problems, but create the problem. When we get material which is intended for the third world country, in many cases, the equipment, the material simply cannot be exported to those third world countries because there's so much customs duties, and that's why there has to be an understanding that solutions must be found. But you have to start somewhere. That's the first point. The second point is that the millions of poor people also want to become shareholders in a company, and the company in this case is the world. They want to take advantage. They want to profit from the world. And this is something that people haven't known for a long time. And I think that people have to learn this, and that's why I think Davos is an ideal platform to get the message across, to get people to realize that everybody should be able to participate in the success of globalization. Everybody can share in that success. And the third point is that there is insufficient sensitivity that has been shown, insufficient sensitivity for the problems of the poor. And the problems that we have heard about and the experiences that we've heard about from these entrepreneurs, these are things that have to be taken up and backed by the people in industry and by the political decision makers. And I hope that Davos will be the beginning of a new world. I know that it sounds a bit utopian, but you've got to be able to live out your dreams, so that when you wake up one day, you don't get plagued by a bad conscience.
Yep. If you let me, I would like to answer to the last gentleman, to encourage him to consume also some Bolivian products, because that is not going to mean that we are going to eat less. To say that, it would be comparable if I would say you shouldn't export Nestlé chocolates to Bolivia, and we really appreciate Nestlé chocolates in Bolivia. We want to eat it, and I'm sure that if we eat chocolates from Swiss, you are still going to have a lot to eat. And it's the same with us. We have a capability to produce a lot of food. What we need is fair trade. We don't want aid, we want trade. And if we don't want to repeat the 11th of September, we need to build justice, and justice you only build towards fair business. Thank you.
Weitere Fragen?
Any other questions or comments? In the middle there.
Somebody has had a talk about the distributing of the money.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you.
This is a mango for you.
Thanks.
That's fine.
That's barter trading. Da hinten ist die Frage.
Ja, mein Name ist.
My name is Thomas Hofer, and I run a business here in Davos. I have a lot of respect for all these people who are sitting up there on the platform. And I think that things seem to be moving in the right direction. But what I am surprised about listening to the three entrepreneurs, or at least I wonder if the figures are open. Do you explain your figures to everybody, even to the small people? But if people are interested in seeing your figures, bookkeeping.
In Ihrer Firma oder?
If people want to go into your company and look at the books, do they have the right to see this?
Verdient so viel Geld und der so viel.
Can you see also how much everybody gets? And does it end up as money in people's pockets? Isn't it a form of capitalism all the same? Is there a form of direct democracy as we practice it in Switzerland? If you do have that kind of direct democracy, I think that you will be even more successful. In fact, I think what you're doing is good, but I think that there should be greater participation at the bottom level as well.
All panelists.
Yes, I would like to tell you how it works, and if you sometime come to Bolivia, please visit us and you will see with your own eyes. The trade union of our company is part of our directory, and every worker knows every penny we earn or we lose. So we are all engaged in make good profit to get better salaries. I hope that you do something like that also in Swiss.
Mr. Aubry?
Yeah, just to follow up, transparency for nonprofits is just as important as it is everywhere else. You can go onto the internet as soon as you leave this meeting and go to our website, and you will see right there our annual report, which has all of the finances for the entire organization. It's always available all the time. Additionally, there's other websites that show all of the transactions that go on. So it's an open book accounting system that we use for the very reasons that you're talking about. It actually strengthens our business model to have that approach in terms of instilling a greater loyalty amongst all the people who are part of the organization.
It's the same in our case. You can go into www.brac.net and can access our accounts of 2001, 2002 accounts is going to be published in April. So you can have a look at that also. So it's a public documentation, and it is available to everybody, whoever wishes to look at it. We basically, I think, and the organization that we have created, I think it's a shared value organization of people who share the same kind of values. And we are completely transparent about what we do. So I think there is nothing secret about it. There is no individual who owns it or anything like that. So approval is the board, and the board is elected by a larger group of people. So there is enough accountability built within it, within the governance. So that's, I don't know, the Swiss model is probably even better than what we practice, but anyway.
It depends.
Thank you.
Mrs. Yitamben.
Yeah, in our organization, we function with donation for some part of activities, and we can also go for the loan for working capital. And to have been able to exist for over 13 years is a proof that, and having the same people continuously support us, they support on the basis of documents they have been able to see. They support on the basis of trust that we have been able to build. And this trust is transparency. They have to come and see that what we have been able to get from them have been used for the people they have sent it for. So we are having our document that is a must for many of the people supporting our organization. And these documents are being audited by official auditors.
Letzte Frage. Wenn es noch eine gibt.
One last question, Mr. Meyer. Yeah, can I say one thing more? Mr. Abed, let me just say one thing. You heard from this young man earlier on that he has a feeling of unease about the expenditure policy. Now, I don't want to get too involved in this discussion, but you said only a certain percentage of NGOs goes into fixed costs. I don't think it is the bookkeeping that's important. It's what figures have been booked and where they've been booked, and that's not always transparent. You know that today you have airline tickets for a project in India will be booked to that project, and the overhead costs are pressed downwards, and you say, well, we've only used up 15%, but nobody has really showed where the costs go. A student for the whole year, and the organization is called Care and Fair, and 115 members in Switzerland, 115 francs. For another organization, the figure is 600 francs. The clothing isn't better, the school isn't better, the school books are not better, and that is where we have to do something. And the last point, why don't charitable organizations or NGOs merger? Why don't they merger?
To somebody?
Well, I think this was directed to me, so let me let me answer this. I think when I talked about 15% overhead, and that I really talked about the European NGOs who collect money from Europe and then send it abroad. I didn't talk about Bangladeshi NGOs. Bangladeshi NGOs do not really keep anything for overhead in the sense that all they do is cover the costs of management. So I was not talking about 15% for Bangladeshi NGOs. I was talking about European NGOs who raise money from public and then use it for development in the third world countries. Now, I think, there are differences among NGOs. As you know, all NGOs are not that fantastic, not all that transparent and so on. So there are NGOs who are not so transparent, probably use more money than they ought to. That happens. But then I think, NGOs need to do trust building also. If they're seeking public money, public donations, then they must be trustworthy. And this is one of the things that we practice. Over the last 30 years, we have practiced it quite well, and as we have not only seen to it that we are completely transparent, we also get audited accounts, not by Bangladeshi auditors, but also international auditors. So we do all kinds of things to build our trust, keep our trust with people, and that's the reason why donors continue to channel funds to us. So this is one of the things how you survive in the NGO world. It is built on trust, and if you lose your trust, you don't get any more donations. That's how it is.
Okay. Join us.
You asked why the charitable organization do not merge. In Switzerland, you have thousands of them. In Cameroon, you have thousands of them. In everywhere, you have many of them, because the people who have created them have different vision. And I think the fact that there are many of them really bring something, a dynamism to this world because some For example, I remember when one time USAID was coming to support our land microfinance program, and they asked us, they said they will allow us only to give the loan for 1% at the rate of 1%, while we were trying to get this group of women included in the main business community. And in our own philosophy, we have said that the interest rate was going to be the same interest rate as in the market, because sometimes if it's too low, the women themselves will refuse to grow, because they will try to remain small to be kept under that program. So we were able to go to another microfinance supporter who could say to us, you can give it at the market interest rate. I think all this variety really is there to serve the development.
Thank you. We are running out of time now. Every panelist has a final chance to launch one idea.
Yes.
A short idea.
Thank you. I'm going to begin.
You started already with it, or?
Yes.
Okay, great.
I quite agree with the Mr. who was criticizing the NGOs, and I think that is one of the main problems of our world today. I think that if in the future we reach a world with justice, we should not have NGOs, at least in the way we have now in the third world. I think in Europe it is quite another thing, because the NGOs, as I said before, are decentralization, the state duties, and you can make your own control about them directly. But in our countries, we have NGOs because our states are not capable to support these duties and these rights which our population has. I think the only way to finish with this story, because as I worked as sociologist in NGOs, in the international cooperation, I did meet quite often communities in Europe where the people give in the charge of through the taxes support to the developing world. And many times they are very frustrated in the way the people administrate this money. I think this is going to have a solution when, for instance, as Mr. Abed said, Europe stopped the subventions to their agriculture, and as United States and Japan, in order to have a fair trade on agriculture in the whole world. We need from you to buy our not only raw materials but ready products. And if our ready products are not technically on your level, please come to invest with us to improve our production. We must work hard to develop an equal world without charity. But this needs the engagement of both sides, not only of one side. Mm-hmm. And I think that is the only way in which we are going to overcome this problem of the NGOs which you are criticizing.
Mr. Aubry, your idea for the future? A short idea?
Sure. So the one thing I'd like to leave the audience with is that, again, I think what unifies all social entrepreneurs is our very practical side. We may have slightly different models for doing it, but we're less concerned with some of the very important, larger philosophical issues that many people from the audience have raised, which are important, which are about how you change the world at a macro level. Those are, it's a very good thing that there's people who have the energy to do that. I think what we have is a particular interest and focus and capacity and energy to leverage our abilities to do something in the here and now on a very practical basis. It tends to be somewhat apolitical in some ways. It tends to be, but it's just very pragmatic. It's about there's a poor person here, and what are we going to do in our work to change that. So social entrepreneurs are very much focused on a pragmatic solution to the problems that we're all trying to face. That often means a very practical and micro way of approaching it. And I'd just like to underscore what Mr. Mercado said, that entrepreneurship really has to be reclaimed from just being for the purpose of earning money for people. That's a noble aspiration, but it's not the only aspiration. And the idea of using creativity and ingenuity and that entrepreneurial spirit to do something different needs to be reclaimed by the social sector. And I think that's what social entrepreneurism is all about.
Yeah. Mr. Aubry? Mr. Abed?
Well, I thought that social entrepreneurs representing the citizens group, I mean, you have one side the government, the another side the business, and it is the citizens group that social entrepreneurs represent. They basically try and meet the needs where government cannot meet all the needs, so supplement governments sometimes. When there are businesses which are not serving the right causes, then social entrepreneurs comes in together to do this kind of business. So it meets a need within our society which the two sectors, the government and the private businesses, do not serve. And I think there is a legitimate function for citizens group to do that.
Ogi?
If I were an American, I would say, don't make war, let's roll for social entrepreneurship. Aber ich bin ein Schweizer.
But I'm a Swiss and a citizen of the world. So I say, we've got ideas. Let's buckle down and get to work.
Nice.
Many big corporations, multinationals, have created some sort of foundation, some sort of organization in developed countries to support people. They are created, they have done it themselves. But I have in mind an example at Lucem Hospital, which have really served the people in my country for a very long time. But when the supporters have withdrawn their support to this program, it has fallen apart. I think that it's time for this corporation to go to the field and really work with social entrepreneurs who know the environment and can bring the kind of results, the long-term, the durable, the sustainable results they are expecting from the community.
Thank you. That was the final word. Ich danke Ihnen.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your attention, but thank you especially to the panelists here. I think you introduced us into a world where you can see that it's not just sport that can bind people together, but economics too. And I don't think that economics is necessarily the enemy. We have seen here that you can develop models in the economy which can promote peace, a better life, and dreams also. Thank you.
Wir werden euch einladen, unsere Produkte am Tour.